The roar of the crowd was still a low hum in Elvis Presley's ears, even after the final triumphant chords had faded and he'd waved his last goodbye from the stage. Backstage, the air was thick with the scent of sweat, hairspray, and the lingering thrill of performance. His jumpsuit, shimmering with sequins, felt heavy and hot, but a deep satisfaction settled in his bones. He'd given them everything tonight, every note, every shimmy, every drop of his soul. He was heading for his dressing room, his entourage a respectful distance behind him, when a small, unexpected figure darted out from behind a stack of equipment cases. It was a boy no older than 7 or 8, with wide, curious eyes and a shock of messy brown hair. He wasn't dressed in a fancy suit or a mini Elvis outfit. He wore worn jeans and a faded t-shirt, looking utterly out of place amidst the glitz and controlled chaos. Elvis, usually unflappable, his security detail immediately tensed, ready to usher the child away. But Elvis raised a hand, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Well, hello there, little fella," he said, his voice a warm rumble, a surprising contrast to the powerful vocals he'd just projected to thousands. "Lost your mama?" The boy didn't seem scared or intimidated by the larger-than-life figure standing before him. Instead, he simply stared up at Elvis with an earnestness that was disarming. "No, sir," he piped up, his voice small but clear. I wanted to ask you something." Elvis leaned down slightly, resting his hands on his sequined hips. "Oh yeah, what's that, son?" He found himself intrigued. Most kids his age were either awestruck into silence or overwhelmed with excitement. This one had a specific mission. The boy shifted his weight, digging the toe of his worn sneaker into the plush carpet, took a deep breath as if preparing for a very important declaration. "Why do you wiggle?" he asked, his eyes never leaving Elvis's face. The question hung in the air, blunt and utterly innocent. For a split second, Elvis was caught off guard. He'd been asked a million questions in his life about his music, his movies, his hair, his clothes, his fame. He'd been praised, criticized, adored, and misunderstood. But never had anyone, not even the most cynical reporter, asked him why he wiggled with such pure, unadulterated curiosity. It wasn't a challenge. It was a genuine inquiry from a mind still untainted by cynicism. Chuckle escaped him, a deep, genuine sound that made his chest vibrate. His security looked at each other, confused by their boss's reaction. "You mean my stage moves?" Elvis clarified, trying to keep a straight face. The boy nodded vigorously. "Yeah. Like when you play your guitar and your legs go all wiggly, and your hips? Why do they do that?" He even demonstrated a small, awkward wiggle of his own, making Elvis chuckle again. The simple honesty of the question pierced through the exhaustion and the lingering adrenaline. It wasn't about marketing or image, or controversy. It was about a pure human expression, seen through the eyes of a child. And suddenly Elvis knew he couldn't just brush it off with a celebrity platitude. This boy deserved a real answer, a serious one, an honest one. He looked around at his handlers, who were still hovering, unsure how to proceed. He met the eyes of Joe, his chief of security, and gave a slight nod. Joe, understanding the unspoken command, signaled the others to give them some space. The entourage discreetly moved back, creating a small bubble around the iconic performer, and the tiny inquirer. "Well now," Elvis said, straightening up a little, his gaze still fixed on the boy. "That's a mighty fine question, son. One of the best I've been asked in a long, long time." He paused, considering. "And it's a mighty complicated answer, too. Not something I can explain in just a few seconds here in the hallway." The boy's face fell slightly, a flicker of disappointment in his wide eyes. "Oh," he mumbled, looking down at his shoes. Elvis saw it and quickly countered, a warm smile returning. "But it's an answer I think we deserve to hear. How about this? My dressing room is just down the hall. We can sit down for a minute, maybe get you cold about it. Would you like that?" The boy's head snapped up, his eyes widening again, but this time with surprise and excitement. "Really? You'd tell me?" "I reckon I would," Elvis said, extending a hand. "My name's Elvis. What's yours, young man?" "Billy." The boy replied, his small hand tentatively reaching out to grasp Elvis's much larger one. Elvis's fingers, still warm from the stage lights, gently closed around Billy's. It was a handshake of trust, a silent agreement that something special was about to unfold. As they walked towards the dressing room, the dazzling sequins on Elvis's suit catching the light, Billy looked up at him, a silent question still in his gaze. Elvis felt a strange calm settle over him. Explaining why he wiggled to this child felt more important, more meaningful than any interview he'd ever given. It wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about the very heart of his music, the very core of who he was, and he was ready to share it. Elvis's dressing room was a whirlwind of activity, just moments before. But by the time Elvis and Billy stepped inside, it had been mostly cleared out by his attentive staff. A few suits hung on a rack, some makeup lay on a vanity table, and the lingering scent of cologne and stage sweat filled the air. It was a private sanctuary, place where the king could finally breathe after a performance. "Make yourself at home, Billy," Elvis said, gesturing to a plush sofa in the corner. He moved to a cooler, pulling out 2 ice-cold bottles of soda, root beer or cola. "Root beer, please." Billy piped up, his eyes darting around the room, taking in every detail. He seemed a little overwhelmed now that he was actually inside Elvis Presley's dressing room, but his curiosity still burned bright. Elvis handed in the frosted bottle, the glass cold against Billy's small fingers. He opened his own cola, the fizz, a satisfying sound in the quiet room. He sat down on the sofa next to Billy, not too close, but close enough to make the boy feel comfortable. "So, Billy," he began, taking a sip, "you really want to know about the wiggling, huh?" Billy nodded, eyes wide with anticipation. He took a gulp of his root beer, a foamy mustache appearing on his upper lip. He wiped it away with the back of his hand. "Yeah, my mom says you're the best dancer, but she says it's kind of wild. And my dad says it's just for show, but it looks like you can't help it." Elvis smiled. "Your dad's not entirely wrong, son. Part of it is for the show. When I'm on stage, I want to give folks a good time. I want to entertain them, but you hit on something important there. The part about not being able to help it." He leaned back, getting comfortable. "You see, for me, those moves, they weren't planned. Not at first, anyway. They came from somewhere else." Paused, looking at Billy, trying to gauge how much a young mind could grasp. He decided to speak from the heart simply and directly. "You ever hear a song, Billy, a really good one, and it just makes you feel something deep down inside?" Billy nodded instantly. "Yeah. Like when my mom plays the radio, and it's a happy song, and I just want to jump around." He even bounced a little on the sofa to illustrate his point. Elvis chuckled. "Exactly. You get that feeling, don't you? That urge to move, to jump, to clap your hands, maybe even sing along. It's like the music tells your body to do something, and you just gotta listen." "Well," Elvis continued, "for me that feeling has always been a little stronger ever since I was a tiny boy. Growing up in Tupelo, Mississippi, we didn't have much money, Billy. No fancy toys, and we had church." Closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the small, humble church where he'd spent countless Sundays, the sounds, the smells, the raw emotion. "The music in our church, Billy, it was different. It wasn't just quiet hymns. It was loud. It was joyful. It was full of spirit. People would clap their hands, stomp their feet, shout praises. Sometimes they'd even get up and just let the music take over." He opened his eyes and looked at Billy. "My mama, she'd sing along, her voice sweet and strong, and I'd sit there, just a little tyke, and I'd feel that music deep in my chest. It wasn't just sounds. It was like waves of feeling washing over me. Happy waves, sometimes sad waves, but always powerful waves. And when those waves hit," Elvis explained, "my body would just respond, my foot would start tapping without me even thinking about it. My fingers would drum on my knee. It was like the rhythm wanted to escape, and my body was the only way it could get out. It wasn't something I learned, Billy. It wasn't something I practiced in front of a mirror. It was just there, like breathing. When the music got and knew what to do. It was a pure, innocent reaction to something beautiful. Billy listened intently, his root beer forgotten for a moment. He seemed to grasp the concept, the idea of music being so powerful it could make your body move on its own. It made sense to him in the way a child understands pure emotion. "So the wiggling, it started in church?" Billy asked, a hint of awe in his voice. Elvis chuckled softly. "In a way, yeah. It started with that feeling, that deep connection to the rhythm. The church was where I first truly felt music move me, body and soul. It was where I first saw people truly let go and express themselves." He took another sip of his cola, a thoughtful look on his face. "Of course, it changed a bit when I got older, and the music I played changed too. But the root of it, the why of it, it always stayed the same. It was always about feeling the music so much, it just had to come out." Billy mulled this over, his brow furrowing slightly in concentration. He looked from his root beer to Elvis, then back to the root beer. "So, you didn't decide to wiggle?" "No, son," Elvis said, a warm, genuine smile spreading across his face. "I didn't decide, the music did, and my body just followed along." He paused, looking at Billy's thoughtful face. "Does that make a little more sense?" Billy nodded slowly, a newfound understanding dawning in his eyes. "Yeah," he said, a small smile appearing on his face. "It's like when you have to sneeze, and you can't stop it even if you try." Elvis threw his head back and laughed, a loud, joyous sound that filled the room. "Exactly, Billy. Exactly like that." He felt a lightness he hadn't expected. This simple conversation, this connection with an innocent child, was more refreshing than any standing ovation. He knew he was on the right track. This serious explanation was going to be adorable, just like the child himself. Elvis leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. "Okay, so you understand the feeling," he said to Billy, who was now carefully taking another sip of his root beer, clearly enthralled. "Now let me tell you a bit more about what that felt like when I was even younger than you. Like I said, we lived in a little house in Tupelo, Mississippi. It was small, just 2 rooms, and we didn't have much. But what we did have was a record player, sometimes, and the radio, and my mama, she loved music. She'd sing around the house, old gospel songs, sometimes country tunes." Closed his eyes again, letting the memories wash over him. "I remember being just a little shaver, maybe 4 or 5 years old. Mama would be humming, or the radio would be playing, and I'd just sit there on the floor, listening. But it wasn't just listening with my whole body. The music, it wasn't just sounds from a box. It felt like it had a life of its own. It felt like a little tickle in my chest, right over my heart. Other times it was like a hum, a vibration that started in my feet and worked its way up." Elvis opened his eyes, looking at Billy. "You know how sometimes when you're riding in a car and the engine hums, you can feel it through the seat? Or if you put your hand on a speaker when music is playing, you can feel the vibration." My dad does that with his big speakers in the garage." "Well, that's what it felt like," Elvis explained. "But it was inside me. It was like my body became the speaker, the rhythm, the bass, the melody. They weren't just for my ears. They were for my skin, my bones, my muscles. They made my insides tingle and sway, and when I felt it tingle," he continued, "my body would just naturally want to move with it. It wasn't dancing, not yet. It was just a little sway, a small tap of my foot. A gentle, my body was saying, yes, I feel that." He remembered a particular memory, hazy with time but vivid in feeling. "I remember being in church, sitting on the wooden bench, and the choir would start to sing. Oh, that gospel music. Billy, it was powerful. It would fill the whole room. rattling the windows, making your teeth vibrate. And I'd be sitting there, just a small kid, watching them, feeling the music just like they were. My hands would want to tap. It was like I was part of a big living rhythm, like a heartbeat, but a lot bigger, a lot louder. My mama, she never told me to stop moving. She never told me to sit still. She understood that it was just me feeling the music, feeling the spirit. She'd just smile at me, a soft, knowing smile, and that made me feel even more okay with letting the music move me. Billy was leaning forward now, his chin resting on his hand, completely engrossed. "So, that's where it really started, Billy," Elvis said, his voice soft but earnest. "Before the big stages, before the fancy lights, before anyone ever even heard of Elvis Presley, it started in that small house. It was pure. It was honest. It was just me, feeling the rhythm of life itself. It was like the music was speaking to my body," he added, "and my body just couldn't help but answer. It was saying, 'I hear you, music. I feel you, and I'm going to move with you.' Does that sound silly to you, a grown man talking about music making his body wiggle?" Billy shook his head fiercely. "No, it sounds cool, like magic," Elvis smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through him. "Well, it felt a little bit like magic, Billy. It still does every time I get on that stage. And the music starts, it's like a connection is made and my body remembers all those times. All those years of just letting the music take over. So, that's the very first touch of music. Deep inside it was the seed, and from that seed all the wiggling grew." He winked, ready for the next part. Billy practically vibrated with excitement. "Yes, tell me what happened next, all right. Billy," Elvis said, settling back onto the couch. "We talked about how music first touched me deep down. Now, let's talk a little more about the church, because that's where those feelings really started to blossom, to grow into something bigger." Took another sip of his cola, eyes distant as he revisited those cherished memories. "Sunday mornings in Tupelo, they were sacred. My family, we went to the First Assembly of God Church, and let me tell you, that wasn't a quiet sit still and listen kind of church, not by a long shot. It was alive. It was like a big, beautiful wave of sound and feeling." He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. "And people, they would get caught up in it. They'd sway, they'd raise their hands to the heavens. Some would even shout praises, tears streaming down their faces. Not because they were sad, but because they were so full of joy, so full of the Spirit, they couldn't hold it in. I'd sit there, right between my mama and daddy, and I'd watch them. I'd see their faces transformed by the music. It wasn't about being proper or polite. It was about letting go. And I felt that too, Billy, even as a small boy. I understood what they were feeling. The music would start in my head, and then it would travel down like electricity. Right through my body, my feet would start tapping just like they did at home. My hands would twitch, wanting to clap, and some body would just want to sway along like a tree in the wind. It wasn't something anyone told me to do. It was just a natural response, like when you hear a funny joke, and you can't help but laugh. Or when you see something beautiful, and you just gasp. My body was just reacting to the beauty. The preachers, they'd talk about the Spirit moving through you. And I truly felt it, Billy. I felt it as a physical sensation. It was like the music wasn't just external. It was something that entered your very being, and there was no judgment there. No one said, "Elvis, stop tapping your foot," or, "Elvis, why are you swaying like that?" It was all part of the experience. It was about being free to express that joy, that connection, in whatever way felt natural. So when people later on, when I was famous, would say my moves were wild or vulgar, they didn't understand this part, Billy. They didn't understand that from me. It came from a pure spiritual place, It came from the uninhibited joy I saw and felt in church. It was about letting the music flow through you, not holding it back. He gestured with his hands as if trying to convey the energy. Imad. And stop that river from flowing. Can you? It's going to rush. Nah, it wasn't about showing off, not then. It was about expressing something that was too big to keep inside. It was about the joy, the emotion that music could bring, and it taught me that it was okay to be moved by music. Deeply. Completely. It taught me to trust that feeling. He seemed to understand the difference between a planned move and a genuine internal reaction. So, when you sing now, he asked, do you still feel like that? Elvis smiled. Oh yes, Billy. Every single time, that feeling, that core connection to the music never left me. It just grew and changed and adapted, but the heart of it, the spirit moving through you part, that's still there. That's still the why behind everything I do on stage. He leaned back, a comfortable silence settling between them. That church, those gospel songs, those people moving freely with the music, that was the big turning point, Billy. That's where I truly learned that music was meant to be felt, not just heard, and that my body was an instrument for expressing that feeling. And that, my young friend, is how the wiggling started to become a little more pronounced. He winked. You ready for what happened when I got a little older and started playing rock and roll? Billy nodded eagerly, leaning forward, practically vibrating with anticipation. His root beer was almost empty, forgotten in his excitement. Okay, Billy, so we've talked about the early days, the little house, the church, and how music started to move me. Elvis began, adjusting his stance, perhaps unconsciously mirroring the way he moved on stage. Now, let's jump ahead a few years. I was a teenager in Memphis, trying to figure things out. Music was still my passion, but I was listening to all kinds of new sounds. I was soaking it all in. The blues on Beale Street, the country music on the radio, the gospel in church to happen. All those different types of music, they started to blend together in my head, creating something new. I got my first guitar, a cheap one, but it was mine, and I spent hours, just hours in my room, teaching myself to play. And when I played, Billy started to get interesting because it wasn't just about feeling the music from the outside anymore. It was about making the music. He strummed an imaginary guitar, his fingers moving as if on fretboard. I'd be singing, playing, and the rhythm would just take over, and then without even thinking about it, my leg would start to shake or my hip would start to sway. It was like the music was telling my body, this is the beat, feel it, move with it. The first few times it happened, I was actually a little surprised. I'd be looking in the mirror, practicing a new chord, and suddenly my leg would just start going. It wasn't a dance move. I'd learned it was just a natural tremor, a vibration that started deep inside and just had to escape. At first, I thought, what am I doing? Is this weird? But then the feeling would be so good, so right, that I just let it happen. It felt like the truest way to express what the music was doing to me. When I started playing small gigs, little clubs, parties, that's when I first started moving like that in front of other people. I wasn't planning it. You know, I'd be up there just pouring my heart into a song, and the music would hit a certain beat, a certain groove, and my body would just respond. He mimed playing his guitar again, swaying slightly. My right leg, it just seemed to have a mind of its own. It would start twitching, keeping time with the rhythm, and then my hips would follow. It wasn't about being cool or showing off. It was just the music demanding a physical response. And then something else happened. The audience, at first they were surprised, even shocked. Sometimes. Nobody had really seen anything quite like it. But then I'd see their faces. They'd start to smile. Some would even start tapping their own feet or swaying in their seats. It was like my movements were contagious, like the music through my body was telling their bodies to feel it too. And that was an incredible feeling, Billy. It wasn't just me and the music anymore. It was me, the music, and the people, all connected by this energy. Sometimes people would laugh, not in a mean way, but in a surprised, happy way, and that made me feel even more confident. It made me realize that maybe, just maybe, this natural way I was moving wasn't something to hide. So, the wiggling, you asked about it. It wasn't a choice I made in a meeting with my manager. It was something that grew out of a deep, honest connection to music. It was my body's way of saying, I love this, I feel this, and I can't sit still when this is happening. He leaned back, a nostalgic smile on his face. It was like the music had a pulse, and my body was just taking that pulse and amplifying it. It was about letting the rhythm flow through me, freely and without holding back. It was never about trying to be provocative or rebellious. And that's how those early performances went, just me, my guitar, and my body responding honestly to the music. And then things started to get bigger, a lot bigger. And those movements, well, they became a big part of what people remembered about Elvis Presley. He looked at Billy, whose eyes were still fixed on him, absorbing every word. Does that make sense, Billy? That it was just a natural response? That it just happened? Billy nodded slowly. So you didn't practice wiggling in front of a mirror to be cool? Elvis chuckled a warm, genuine laugh. Not at first, no son. I practiced my guitar chords. The wiggling just came along for the ride. It was the music doing the talking, and my body just doing the listening. And then, well, the whole world started listening too. So Billy, by the time I started playing bigger shows, those natural movements, the wiggling, the leg shakes, the hip swivels, they were just part of me. Elvis explained, his voice growing more animated as he described the thrill of live performance. They weren't something I thought about. They just happened when the music took hold. But then something truly amazing started to happen when I was on stage, really performing for a crowd. It wasn't just about my feeling the music anymore. It became an energy exchange. He leaned forward, his hands gesturing to illustrate his point. Imagine this, Billy. I'm up there singing my heart out, playing my guitar, and I'm feeling that music deep in my bones. Just like I told you, my body starts to move naturally, freely, because that's what the music is telling it to do. And then I look out at the crowd, and I see them at first. They might be surprised, maybe even a little shocked by my moves, but then I see their eyes light up. I see smiles spreading across their faces. And then something incredible happens. They start to move too. A girl in the front row might tap her foot. A fellow might start swaying in his seat. Someone else might clap their hands to the beat. It's like a ripple effect. My movements born from the music inside me were telling their bodies, come on, feel this. And that made me move even more. It was like a feedback loop of pure, electric joy. It wasn't about being sexy or rebellious to me, Billy. Those were words the grown-ups used later, the ones who didn't understand. For me, it was about joy. It was about freedom. It was about this incredible connection that music could create between me and thousands of people. When I was on that stage, and I was moving like that, and I saw the audience getting excited and moving with me, I felt like we were all part of something bigger than ourselves. We were all connected by this incredible feeling that only music's kept, and that Billy made me want to move even more, because I saw how much it made them feel. It wasn't just for me anymore. It was for all of us. It was a way to share that feeling, that excitement, that liberation. It was a way to say, hey, it's okay to let go and move with the music. He leaned back, a faraway look in his eyes, remembering the roar of the crowd, the sea of smiling faces. It was like magic, Billy, pure magic. And those movements, the wiggles as you called them, became a language of joy, of passion, of shared excitement that transcended words. So, yeah, part of it became the show, because people expected it, and I wanted to give them what they loved. But the reason I did it, the source of it, was always that pure, honest response to the music. And the incredible people feel alive, Billy. That's what it was really about. He looked at Billy, whose expression was a mixture of awe and understanding. You ever play a game with your friends, Billy, and everyone gets really excited and you all just start cheering and jumping up and down together? Billy nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, like when we win the baseball game. Exactly, Elvis exclaimed. It's that same kind of shared energy, that shared joy. My wiggling was just my way of being excited and then inviting everyone else to join in the excitement with me. It was about sharing the pure fun of it all. So it wasn't just about my body moving on its own anymore. It was about creating a bridge, a connection between me and every single person in that audience. And that, my young friend, is one of the greatest feelings in the world. Elvis shifted on the sofa. A slight change in his demeanor. The joyful reminiscence in his voice faded a little, replaced by a more reflective tone. Billy noticed it and instinctively sat a little straighter. Now, Billy, Elvis began. Not everyone understood it. When I started getting really famous and those moves were seen by millions of people, not everyone reacted like your dad's friends who just thought it was for show, or like the happy people in my church. He sighed softly. Some folks, especially older folks, and on TV, they didn't like it one bit. They said it was vulgar. They said it was too wild, too suggestive. They said it was corrupting the youth. He looked at Billy, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Can you imagine, Billy? People saying that something that felt so natural, so joyful, so connected to music was bad. It was hard to hear. I won't lie. It hurt sometimes because I knew in my heart where it came from. They just saw the movement, but they didn't see the music behind it. They didn't feel the rhythm that was making my body respond. They didn't understand that it wasn't about trying to be bad. It was about trying to express pure, unadulterated passion. They thought it was a calculated move, something I did just to shock people or get attention. But as I told you, Billy, it started long before any of that. It started with that deep, honest connection to the very vibrations of the music. It was frustrating because it was like they were looking at a beautiful painting and only seeing the colors as messy splatters, instead of understanding the feeling the artist was trying to share. They took something pure and made it seem dirty. Some places even tried to censor me, to make me stand still. There was one time on a big TV show where they only showed me from the waist up. Can you believe that, Billy? They thought if they couldn't see my legs move, it would somehow stop the corruption. He shook his head, a wry smile touching his lips. The music was still there, moving through me. And even if they couldn't see it, I could still feel it, and I hoped the audience could too. But even with all that criticism, all that misunderstanding, I couldn't stop, Billy, because it wasn't something I could turn off. It was too deeply ingrained. It was too honest to stop moving, like that without my voice, or play guitar without my hands. It would have felt like I was holding back a part of myself, holding back the very essence of what the music made me feel. And if I wasn't honest about that, then how could I connect with the audience the way I wanted to? So I just kept going. I kept letting the music move me, because I knew deep down that it wasn't wrong. It was just different, and for every person who misunderstood, there were thousands, millions who did understand, who felt that same joy, that same freedom. When they saw me move, and that's why when you asked me why I wiggle, Billy, it's important to me to tell you the real story, not the story the critics made up, not the story that tried to make it something dirty or bad, but the honest-to-goodness truth about where it all came from. It came from a place of love for music, pure and simple, and from a deep belief that music should make you feel alive and make you want to move, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Billy? Ever? Billy nodded, ashamed of. They just didn't get it. But you do, and that means a lot to me. So, Billy, you understand that the wiggling wasn't some trick, and it wasn't something bad, even though some people said it was. Elvis continued, his voice regaining its natural warmth. Now, let's talk about what those movements really mean to me, and what I hope they mean to other people. For me, Billy, my wiggling is a message. It's a message of freedom. Think about it when you're a kid. Sometimes grown-ups tell you to sit still, to be quiet, to do things a certain way, and sometimes that's important, of course, but there are other times when you just need to let go, to express yourself, to feel free. When I'm on stage and the music hits me, body starts to move. It's me saying, I am free to feel this music. I am free to express this joy. I am free to move however my body tells me to. It's about not being held back. It's about being truly, completely yourself. He leaned forward, looking directly at Billy. You know how sometimes, when you're really happy, you just want to run and jump and shout? Or when you hear a really great song on the radio, you can't help but tap your foot, even if you're sitting down. Billy nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Yeah, my mom always tells me to stop tapping, but I can't. Elvis chuckled. That's it. Exactly, Billy. That's that natural response, that urge to let the feeling out. My wiggling is just that, but bigger, maybe a little more dramatic, because I'm on a big stage with a lot of energy around me. It's about letting the music flow through you, Billy, and letting it guide your movements. It's about not being afraid to feel things deeply, and not being afraid to show it. It's about being alive, truly alive. In that moment, and when I see people in the audience, when they start to sway or clap or even just smile and nod their heads, I know they're feeling that too. They're feeling that freedom, they're letting go. And that's the most beautiful thing to me, that my music and my way of expressing it can help other people feel that same sense of liberation. It's like I'm saying, hey, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to feel the music in your bones. It's okay to move your body in whatever way feels right to you. It's about celebrating that pure, unadulterated joy that music can bring. He paused, a thoughtful look on his face. In life, Billy, there are a lot of rules, a lot of expectations. But music, good music, it can sometimes break through all that. It can remind you of the simple, honest feeling of being human, and my movements, they're just me trying to show that, to embody that feeling. So every wiggle, every shake, every swivel, it's not just a dance step, it's a moment of connection, it's a moment of truth. It's me saying, this is what the music does to me, and it's wonderful. Let it do the same to you. It's about encouraging people to let their hair down, to forget their worries for a while, and just get lost in the rhythm to feel that pure feeling music. It's about letting your body move in harmony with your soul. He smiled, a gentle, genuine smile. Does that make sense, Billy? That it's about freedom, Billy Knights. Yeah. So it's like your body is dancing because your heart is happy. Elvis's smile widened. Billy, that's just about the best way anyone's ever put it. Yes, son, my body is dancing because my heart is happy. And my heart is happy because of the music. And because I get to share that happiness with others. It's about being true to that feeling no matter what anyone else says. Because when you're true to something that pure and good, you can't go wrong. We're almost at the end of the story, Billy, Elvis said, a contented sigh escaping him. He looked at the boy who was still listening with rapt attention, his small body a picture of stillness despite the energetic tales. You've heard about where it started, how it grew, and what it meant to me. Now let's talk about what I hope it gives to others. You see, Billy, being on stage performing for all those people, it's a privilege. It's a gift, and when I'm up there and I feel that music and my body starts to move, it's not just for me anymore. It's a gift I'm trying to share with everyone in that audience. My wiggles, my shakes, they're not just moves. They're an invitation to feel the joy, to let go of worries, to be present in that moment with the music. It's a way for me to say, come on, join me in this feeling. Think about it this way. Billy, sometimes people come to my shows and they've had a tough week. Maybe they're worried about their jobs or something going on at home, or they just feel tired and heavy, even just for a little while. He gestured with his hand as if encompassing an imaginary audience. When I move like that and I see a smile light up on someone's face, or I see them start tapping their foot, or hear them cheer, that's when I know I've done my job. I've given them a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. A moment where they can forget everything else and just feel good. It's like when you give someone a present, Billy, you don't just wrap it up and toss it at them. You offer it with a smile, hoping they'll enjoy it. My performance, my movements, they're my way of offering that gift of joy. It's from my heart, through the music and out through my body. I want people to feel alive. I want them to feel excited. I want them to remember what it's like to just let go and have pure, simple fun. And if my wiggling helps them do that, even for a few songs, then it's all worth it. I believe music has a powerful healing quality, Billy. It can mend spirits, lift moods, and bring people together. And my movements are just me trying to amplify that healing, that joy, that connection. It's about sharing the passion that lives inside me. He looked at Billy, his eyes warm and sincere. So when you see me wiggle, Billy, I want you to remember this. It's not about being wild or crazy, or even just dancing. It's about pure, unadulterated joy that music brings. And my body is just a vessel, a messenger for that joy. It's about feeling something so deeply, so purely, that it just has to come out. And then sharing that feeling, hoping it makes someone else's day a little brighter, their heart a little lighter. That's the gift. Every time I step on that stage and the band starts to play, I go back to that little boy in Tupelo, feeling the rhythm in his chest, feeling the spirit in church. And I just let it take over, and I hope with all my heart that everyone out there feels it too. Billy was quiet for a moment, absorbing the depth of Elvis's explanation. He wasn't just hearing about dance moves. He was hearing about a philosophy, a way of life expressed through music and movement. So, you wiggle to make people happy? Billy finally asked, his voice soft, almost reverent. Elvis smiled, a deep, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. Yes, Billy. I wiggle to make people happy and to make them feel the music. Truly. Feel it just like I do. Comfortable silence settled in the room, filled only by the distant sounds of the crew cleaning up the arena. Billy, eyes still wide with understanding, finally broke it. That's really cool, Mr. Presley. Elvis chuckled softly. Just Elvis, son. We're on a first-name basis now, aren't we? Billy grinned, a genuine, joyful smile. Yeah, Elvis. Took one last gulp of his root beer, the bottle now completely empty. So when I hear a song and my foot taps, that's like you're wiggling, but smaller. Exactly, Elvis affirmed, a surge of warmth in his chest. Billy had truly understood. It's all the same feeling, Billy. It's just your body responding to the music, letting that joy and rhythm out. Never be afraid to let it out, son. Never be afraid to feel the music with your whole being. He leaned closer, lowering his voice slightly, as if sharing a special secret. And here's a promise for you, Billy. Next time you see me on stage, or if you ever watch me on TV, you'll know the real reason behind the wiggles. It's not just a show. It's a story. And now, it's our little secret. Billy's eyes sparkled. a thrill of being part of something special washing over him. "I won't tell anyone," he whispered, as if the entire explanation was a delicate, precious thing. Elvis nodded. Good man. He felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He'd given an honest answer, not to a reporter or a fan club, but to an innocent child who had asked the purest question. And in doing so, he felt he had reaffirmed the very essence of his art to himself. "You know, Billy," Elvis continued, standing up and stretching his long limbs, uncoiling with a graceful ease, "music is one of the greatest gifts in life. It can lift you up when you're down. It can make you dance when you're happy. And it can help you understand things you can't put into words." He walked over to a rack of his famous jumpsuits, running a hand over the sparkling fabric of one. "These outfits, the lights, the crowds, they're all part of it. But the real magic, the real reason I do it, is that feeling. The feeling I told you about. The feeling that starts deep." A fond smile on his face. "So you keep listening to music, Billy. Keep feeling it. And don't you ever be afraid to let your body move with it in whatever way feels natural to you, because that's how you truly connect with the music." Just then, the door to the dressing room opened slightly, and a concerned-looking woman peered in. "Billy, there you are. Oh, Mr. Presley, I'm so sorry. He must have slipped away from me after the show." "No need for apologies, ma'am," Elvis interjected smoothly, walking towards the door. "Billy here was just asking me a mighty important question, and I was giving him a mighty important answer." He winked at Billy. "Aren't we, partner?" Billy nodded enthusiastically. The woman looked utterly bewildered, but Elvis just smiled reassuringly. "He's a smart young man, ma'am. Got a good head on his shoulders, and a good ear for music, too, I reckon." He gently placed a hand on Billy's shoulder. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Billy. You made my night." "You too," Billy said, his eyes shining with a mixture of wonder and gratitude. He felt like he was leaving with a secret treasure. As Billy's mother led him away, still murmuring apologies, Billy glanced back over his shoulder. Elvis stood there, framed in the doorway of his dressing room, a regal figure in his shimmering suit, but also just a man who truly loved music. Billy lifted a small hand and gave a little hesitant wave. Elvis waved back, a warm smile on his face. Then, as Billy and his mother disappeared down the corridor, Elvis turned back into his dressing room. The energy of the crowd, the exhaustion from the show seemed to melt away, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. He walked over to his vanity, picked up a comb, and began to run it through his famous pompadour. But his mind was still on Billy's question. Why do you wiggle? It wasn't just a question about dance. It was a question about the soul of his music, the very core of his being, and explaining it to that innocent, trusting child had been more clarifying, more profound than 1,000 interviews. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, and for a moment he saw not the king of rock and roll, but the little boy in Tupelo, Miss's small body, and he smiled. The wiggles weren't just movements, they were his story, his truth, his gift, and today he had shared it with someone who truly understood, and that felt pretty adorable after all.